Internet icebergs. You either love them or hate them. Personally, I love them, and I've seen different types of icebergs for a lot of video game franchises. Zelda, Pokemon, Smash Bros, just to name a few. One franchise I haven't seen yet is Street Fighter. That's why today I'll be covering the Street Fighter iceberg. How many of them do you know? Before I get started, I have to credit Fairly Frequent Fighting Game Facts on Twitter for originally creating this iceberg. Without them, this video wouldn't be possible, so go follow them on Twitter, link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get started. Also, I didn't find any information for some of these, so if you know something that I don't, let me know down in the comments below. Jackie Chan dressed up as Chun-Li. What a way to start. This actually wasn't from any Street Fighter movie, but from the 1993 Hong Kong film adaptation of the anime City Hunter. Mega Man X Street Fighter moves. In the first Mega Man X game with many requirements, one defeating all the Mavericks, head back to Armored Armadillo stage, and at the end of the level, you have a chance of finding a new capsule which will grant Mega Man the Hadouken. It can only be used when Mega Man has full health and can one-hit KO most opponents. Dan SNK parody. Back in the early 90s, Capcom and SNK were rivals, and when Street Fighter Alpha came out, Capcom made a character based on Art of Fighting Ryo named Dan, and they intentionally made him bad as a jab to SNK. Capcom Multiverse. I don't know what this specifically refers to, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a theory that all Capcom universes are linked because of games like Marvel vs. Capcom, but I don't think there's any evidence to back this up. Reporter Chun-Li. I think this is referring to Street Fighter the movie where Chun-Li is a reporter. There's also a reference in Mega Man 9 where Chun-Li is also a reporter there. Balrog, Bison, and Vega name swaps. In the international versions of Street Fighter 2, Capcom USA changed the names of the new Shadaloo members. M. Bison became Balrog, Balrog became Vega, and Vega became Bison. This is because of potential legal issues with Mike Tyson. Ryu and crossovers. I'm sure this just refers to the insane amount of crossovers Ryu has appeared in over the years. Some of the more interesting ones are Project Cross Zone, Granblue Fantasy, Super Smash Bros, and of course, Fortnite. Evo Moment 37. This is of course referring to the iconic moment where Daigo Umehara did an entire parry of Justin Wong's super move and has gone on to influence many more things in fighting games as well as many books and documentaries. Ken Master's name. If this is referring to the creation of Ken's last name, basically Hasbro made Street Fighter 2 toys in the 90s, and because Hasbro didn't want to confuse people with their Barbie toys, they named the Ken toy as Ken Master, and Capcom kept the name. Shotos. Some fighters are called Shotos because they play like Ryu and Ken, with fireballs, hurricane kicks, and uppercuts. Some of these characters include Akuma, Sakura, Dan, Sean, and Evil Ryu. Shenglong. Shenglong was a prank by Electronic Gaming Monthly to trick people into thinking there was a secret character in Street Fighter 2 as well as Street Fighter 3, but this obviously wasn't true. Flowchart Ken. Flowchart Ken is a graph showing everything a Ken player would do, and it's obviously meant to be taken as a joke, but it's kind of true. It was Tuesday. This happens in the Street Fighter the movie where Chun-Li explains to Bison all the bad things he did to her village, and Bison exclaims that he doesn't remember anything, and for him,
it was Tuesday.
Go home and be a family man. This is a quote from Guile in Street Fighter 2 where if you lose, Guile will tell you to go home and be a family man. This is referenced in other parts of Street Fighter as well. Alex vs. Hugo. In Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, Alex and Hugo have a standoff as an Easter egg if you play the two, and this is a reference to Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. The Ken and Terry intro. In the Capcom vs. SNK games, Ken and Terry have an intro together where Ken throws Terry his hat. This is just an iconic scene, but it may mean the two actually know each other outside of these games. So all of those ones are pretty well known things about Street Fighter, but you know it's also well known the fact that you're not subscribed and you should go ahead and do that. Thank you. Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition. This is an unofficial version of Street Fighter 2 made by a company in Taiwan, where the game is super fast, has broken moves for the whole cast, and you can change characters mid-match. This went on to influence Capcom to make Hyper Fighting. Japanese continue hints. If I remember correctly, in the Japanese versions of some Street Fighter games on the continue screen, the game will tell you some inputs to help you throughout the game, though I can't find any images of this. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Initial Music. The Japanese version of Tatsunoko vs. Capcom has very different music compared to the localized version because of copyright issues with Tatsunoko. Seth Move Steals. In Street Fighter V, Seth can steal other characters' moves. This led people to believe that Seth would be the last character in Street Fighter V, since there is so much work that needs to be done on just Seth. This was confirmed not true when Capcom announced a Season 5. Karate Champ influences. Karate Champ is a 1984 fighting game, and Street Fighter takes a lot of influences from that game, such as two fighters in a white and red gi and traveling around the world. Combos are bugs. Originally, the end-lag of moves in Street Fighter II was a glitch and led into combos until they were fully embraced in later versions of Street Fighter II. Eagle is gay. In the Japanese versions of some Street Fighter games, Eagle has some win quotes that might mean Eagle is gay, and that's about it. Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting are Street Fighter II clones. I didn't find anything about this, but I guess you could make some connections between the games, and considering the fact that the original creators of Street Fighter I did move on to work at SNK. Blanka-chan. Blanka-chan is an alternate costume for Blanka in Street Fighter V, where he looks like a plushie and everyone loves it, even referencing this in-game in some character stories. Crossover Jail. I'd never heard of this and couldn't find anything, so let me know if you know something. Street Fighter JoJo inspirations. There are many different aspects of Street Fighter that could be connected to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Some include character designs of Rose, Juri, and Nikali. Street Fighter 2010. Street Fighter 2010 is an NES game released in 1989, set in the future of 2010, with no connection to Street Fighter, but when Capcom USA got the game, they made the main character Ken and the main villain Ryu, and called it Street Fighter 2010. Street Fighter 89. Also in 1989, Capcom released Street Fighter 89, known today as Final Fight. I'm guessing Capcom just called Final Fight this for brand recognition. Poison is trans. One of Street Fighter's former producers, Yoshinori Ono, was asked in an interview about Poison's gender, and he said, "Let's set the record straight. In North America, Poison is officially a post-op transsexual woman, but in Japan, she simply tucks her business away to look female." Nikali is Street Fighter V's antagonist. I guess you could argue this, but I don't really see how he can be the main antagonist. Dan beats Sagat. In Street Fighter Unlimited, which is a comic book, Dan fights Sagat, and Sagat ultimately accepts defeat. I couldn't find a specific image for this, and I'm sure there are more places where Dan wins, but this is just one example of it. Akuma spares Gen. In the Street Fighter lore, Akuma finds Gen and finds out that Gen is actually a skillful opponent. But Akuma doesn't actually fight Gen because Akuma learns that Gen is fatally ill. We'll see more of Akuma being nice like this later. Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting are made by the Street Fighter I devs. This is true, and I already mentioned this before. Takashi Nishiyama and Hiroshi Matsumoto left Capcom after finishing Street Fighter I and went to SNK. Charlie is Blanka. This refers to the Street Fighter movie where Charlie merges with Blanka to become Carlos Blanka. This is just discontinuity with Street Fighter, as Blanka already has a real name, which is Jimmy. Ultra Street Fighter 4 Omega Mode. Omega Mode is a joke mode in Ultra Street Fighter 4, where every character is made pretty much busted, and it isn't meant to be taken seriously at all. Q. Q is a character introduced in Third Strike, and pretty much everything about him is unknown. There are theories that he might be G from Street Fighter V, but nothing is confirmed. Charlie's name. In Japan, Charlie is called Nash, but in everywhere else, he's called Charlie. This was always the case until Street Fighter V, where Charlie is called Nash everywhere. His name is simply Charlie Nash. Street Fighter the Movie The Game. This was released in arcades in 1995, and it was very unpopular. Somehow the game got a home console release, and it was made to play more like Super Turbo, and it also wasn't even released on the Super Nintendo or the Genesis. Street Fighter the animated movie influenced Street Fighter Alpha. This mostly comes from backstories of many characters, such as Charlie as a character and later being killed by Bison. Bison wants to be a cute anime girl. I have no clue what this is supposed to mean, but I would love to hear what this is supposed to mean. Game Boy Advance versions of Super Turbo and Alpha 3. These were strange ports. Super Turbo added stages from Alpha for some characters, and even some original stages, and Alpha 3 was the first to feature the CVS2 characters Eagle, Maki, and Yun. Ryu's headband. I don't know exactly what this is supposed to mean, but Ken was the person to give Ryu his headband, so that's interesting. Hyper Street Fighter 2. This was released for the PS2 for Street Fighter's 15th anniversary, which included Street Fighter 2 and Third Strike, and let you play any version of a Street Fighter 2 character, so that's pretty cool. Diarrhea Kick. This is a joke from Screw Attack's Death Battle with one of Ryu's moves, the Donkey Kick, or the name shown on screen which I'm not going to try and pronounce, was named Diarrhea Kick. B-Boy Ryu. This is a costume for Ryu in Street Fighter V where Ryu is not his normal self, we'll put it that way. Dalsum Skulls. Dalsum wears a necklace where there are skulls on them. There are different theories that you can make with these, but it's pretty weird that they are here, and I don't think there is anything confirmed about anything about them. Random Stun. In Street Fighter II, when you would get stunned would be random, which makes Street Fighter II pretty broken in that regard. Ryu vs. Truck. This refers to a scene in Street Fighter II the anime and movie where Bison drives a truck and tries to run over Ryu. Pretty brutal. Gil adopting Alex. In Gil's ending in Third Strike, he turns Alex into one of Gil's servants, turning him red and blue just like Gil. There's also a page in a comic where Gil thinks Alex is a good fighter and takes him in, but I couldn't find it. Akuma is canon to Tekken. In Tekken 7's story mode, Kazumi orders Akuma to kill both Kazuya and Heihachi. Then Akuma attacks Kazuya. This turns him into his devil form, which impacts the Tekken lore a lot. Bison is Street Fighter V's antagonist. I thought this was already confirmed as Bison is the final boss of Street Fighter V's story mode, but maybe I'm just missing something. Dan learned Muay Thai. This is a strategy by Dan after being kicked out of Goken's training class. Dan thought it'd be a good idea to learn the same art that killed his father. Q in the Battle Harbor. If you don't know, Battle Harbor is Ken's stage from Street Fighter II, and one of the characters in the background looks like Q, so that's pretty interesting. Akuma as a fruit vendor. Some images exist of Akuma giving fruit to children. We'll see more of Akuma being good later, but this goes to show that Akuma isn't totally a bad guy. Chun-Li's small HP bar. It was confirmed by Street Fighter IV director Yoshinori Ono that he wanted to make not only Chun-Li's HP bar lower, but every female fighter's HP bar lower because he thought women are not as strong. Oh boy. Norimaru. Japanese comedian Noritaki Kanashi was featured as a playable character in the Japanese version of Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. I'm pretty sure he wasn't put in the localized versions because people outside of Japan probably wouldn't know him. New Generation, New IP. I'm not too sure if this refers to Street Fighter 3 New Generation, but maybe it's because there are so many new fighters, it's a new IP. Hugo in New Generation. Speaking of New Generation, Hugo was planned as a character in New Generation. However, due to time constraints, he was cut and was later featured in Second Impact. Fighting Street. Some PC versions of Street Fighter 1 were named Fighting Street because they were not officially licensed by Capcom, and this name is just really funny. I wish more companies did this nowadays. Akuma is good? I already mentioned Akuma as a fruit vendor and him sparing Gen, but there are also win quotes from Akuma that might show Akuma really isn't that bad of a guy, and that's pretty interesting to see from a guy who looks like Akuma. Otoko Michi. This is Dan's version of a Raging Demon, which is only featured in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and is done by doing a Raging Demon in the opposite motion. Heavy punch, light kick, backwards, light punch, light punch. Evil Sagat. In Sagat's story in Street Fighter V, Sagat imagines an evil version of himself that he must defeat. This is similar to Evil Ryu, and Sagat finally understands what Ryu is going through. Tekken Cross Street Fighter. You may know Street Fighter Cross Tekken, but do you know Tekken Cross Street Fighter? This is supposed to release at the same time as Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and play like a Tekken game, but it still hasn't come out. Apparently the game is still in production, but we haven't heard anything about Tekken Cross Street Fighter since Street Fighter Cross Tekken's launch. It's safe to assume that the game is either cancelled, or they're taking a break on working on the game. Guile's Handcuffs. There is a glitch in Street Fighter 2, how many times have I heard that, where Guile will throw his opponent and the other character will stay on them. King Cobra. When you see this image, who do you think this was concept art for? It's for Rufus. Yeah, I think everyone would have preferred King Cobra over Rufus. Granblue Fantasy crossovers. Granblue Fantasy had a crossover Street Fighter under the names Ultra Granblue Fighter and Granblue Fighter 5 with some cool characters. Devil May Cry Street Fighter moves. Some moves that Dante, Nero, and Virgil use are based on Street Fighter, like Ken Shinryuken and Chun-Li's lightning kicks. Kage is Dan? Many theories were going around before Dan was revealed for Street Fighter V that he might have turned into Kage because Kage is a totally different character, and the fact that Dan wasn't there. This theory is obviously disproven now, but I believed it too. Guy wears Nike. I mean, maybe? Kei Chitose. This is Sakura's best friend and appears in some of Sakura's victory animations and in Sakura's story in Rival Schools. Alpha 2 retells Alpha 1. This is true, just like how Second Impact is a retelling of New Generation. Street Fighter 2 Chun-Li in Street Fighter Alpha. By putting in a command on the character select screen for Alpha 2 and Alpha 3, you can play as Chun-Li with her Street Fighter 2 attire. Ed is Street Fighter V's antagonist. I have no clue why there are so many of these, and I have no clue how this can be true, but maybe they develop Ed more as a character in Street Fighter 6. Hey, guess what, guys? We're halfway there! Woo! G. G is a character introduced in Season 3 of Street Fighter V and the self-proclaimed President of the Earth, and similar to Q, he is a pretty unknown character. I mentioned how G might be Q, but nothing is confirmed. Akuma kills Gen. I wasn't able to find anything about Akuma straight up killing Gen, but in Akuma's story in Street Fighter V, Akuma and Gen fight, though it's not shown what happens to Gen. I thought Akuma was supposed to be a good guy, what the heck? Horse Akuma. I've got nothing on this one. I tried looking for things, but I couldn't find anything, though I would like to hear more about this. Second Impact retells New Generation. I already mentioned this before, just like how Alpha 2 retells Alpha 1. The only difference with the Street Fighter 3 games is that there are some new characters, Hugo and Urien specifically. Ganbaru Karen in X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Ganbaru refers to Sakura Ganbaru, which is a comic book which was actually the debut appearance for Karen rather than Street Fighter Alpha 3. And what makes this more interesting is that there is data for this Karen in X-Men vs. Street Fighter, only wearing Sakura's outfit instead of Karen's normal outfit. Sakura Ganbaru. As I just mentioned, Sakura Ganbaru is a manga following Sakura during the Alpha games as she tries to become a Street Fighter and meet Ryu. Sakura's son. All we know about this character is that he appears at the end of Sakura's story in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, which is really interesting to see. Capcom Fighting Jam. This was a Capcom fighting game crossover released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2, and it wasn't very good. Characters were locked to their playstyles and it just didn't play very good. I don't recommend you play it. Ken and Ryu skinny dipping. I'm not kidding. In Street Fighter 2 V, an animated show, there is a scene where Ken and Ryu skinny dipped. Never thought I would talk about this. Akuma in Resident Evil 2. A magazine in the 90s said that Akuma was playable in Resident Evil 2 by doing lots of complicated things. The recess rumor type of things you would hear, and it obviously wasn't true. Forbidden Shoryuken. This occurs if you miss the first hit of Ryu's Shin Shoryuken, and this is also Goken's super move in Street Fighter 4. I tried looking for reasons why it's called the Forbidden Shoryuken, but couldn't find anything. Udon Street Fighter. If you don't know, Udon makes comic books, which I already explained, and their Street Fighter series is very popular and makes many things canon that aren't shown in the games, which we'll talk about a little bit later, so it's really cool to see. Trace sprites in SNK vs. Capcom. Characters who got new sprites in Capcom vs. SNK, such as Ryu, Ken, and Akuma, were actually traced from their Street Fighter 2 sprites, which I actually didn't know until today. Sakura's Raging Demon. In Street Fighter EX and EX3, Sakura has a Raging Demon, unlike in the Marvel games where Sakura has to transform into Dark Sakura to do it. It's very interesting to see that Sakura can do this just on the fly in the EX games. Vega trained the dolls. This is evident in Vega's ending in Street Fighter Alpha 3, where he saved Cammy, saying that he can't let such beauty get killed. Cammy and Vega also share some similar moves in later games. Motion capture usage. The most famous example of this is Elena in Street Fighter 3 with her infamous sprite, which is actually motion captured. Kage is not Evil Ryu. I mean, they have pretty much the same moves. Evil Ryu is in Street Fighter V. I don't really know how to agree with this, but I'm sure I'm missing something. Dante in SNK vs. Capcom Chaos. It was confirmed that Dante was planned to be a playable character in SVC Chaos, but was replaced by Dimitri from Darkstalkers. The Hibiki family. This is Dan's last name, but I don't know what this is specifically supposed to mean, but today I did find out that Dan has a sister named Yuriko. Street Fighter EX on the N64. An N64 version was planned for the first Street Fighter EX game, and footage also exists for this version, but was cancelled for unknown reasons. Zangief is gay. This is a popular fan theory that comes from Zangief's ending in Street Fighter 2, where he is posing in front of a picture of Vega, which might mean Zangief could possibly be attracted to him. Forbidden Shoryuken in Smash. thank god I missed the Smash quota for the video. When you try to activate Ryu's Shin Shoryuken in Smash but miss the first hit, you'll get the Forbidden Shoryuken just like in Street Fighter, and it's awesome to see attention to detail like this. Zubaz. Zubaz is a name for a concept character that was cut from Street Fighter 2, and there are theories that this could have been the original design for Vega, as both characters are bull riders. Now, I'm not joking when I talk about this next one, but hear me out, okay? Oro's penis. Thankfully, I knew about this one and didn't have to look it up, because Oro's standing sprite in Street Fighter 3 makes it look like he has, How about we move on? Hobo Ryu was the default appearance. Concept art for Street Fighter V shows Ryu's beard costume as the default costume, and the story would have been that Ryu was training for a very long time and just returned to society when Street Fighter V kicks off. Darun Meister in Street Fighter V. If you don't know who Darun Meister is, he's a character from the Street Fighter EX games, and while I couldn't find any evidence of him being planned as a character, Zangief does give Darun one of the chess pieces from the story mode for safekeeping. Capcom sues Data East. In 1993, Data East released the game Fighter's History, and Capcom sued Data East for the game being too similar to Street Fighter 2, but surprisingly Capcom did lose the court case. Ryu in Family Guy vs. American Dad. To add to Ryu's crossovers, Ryu was featured as a guest character in Family Guy vs. American Dad. And hey, this crossover might come full circle if Peter Griffin actually comes to Fortnite. Tekken 7's Bakumram comes from Tekken vs. Street Fighter Sagat. Bakumram is a newcomer to Tekken 7, and between the similar body shape and outfit, he does look like Sagat, but I'm not too sure if he's a ripped model from Sagat. Balrog is from Street Fighter 1. Mike from Street Fighter 1 is a character who looks a lot like Balrog and even shares the same name in Japan, but these two characters are not the same characters. Shin Ryu. Going back to Udon Street Fighter lore, in Street Fighter Unlimited, Ryu finally gets complete control over the Satsui no Hado and becomes Shin Ryu and is able to defeat Akuma. Gil is Street Fighter V's antagonist. I could actually see this one. In his story, Gil plans to unveil himself as the new leader of the world, going against G, and since Street Fighter V happens before Street Fighter 3, it's not too bad of a theory. Shin Akuma in the Super Nintendo version of Street Fighter Alpha 2. This was originally discovered recently because before, no one knew if Shin Akuma was actually playable in the Super Nintendo version of Alpha 2 without cheat codes, but by getting the high score in arcade mode and having a specific name, you can actually play as Shin Akuma. Street Fighter vs. Mortal Kombat. If I'm talking about the right thing, there is a Dreamcast hack for a game called Street Fighter vs. Mortal Kombat, but it's not official at all. I'm not too sure if there is ever an official game in the works. Hyper Street Fighter Alpha. This is only playable in the Street Fighter Alpha Anthology, where you have to beat all games once, and you can play any version of an Alpha character with new isms based on Darkstalkers, Marvel vs. Capcom, and more. Scott and Max. You may not know who these two characters are, but they are actually the two characters at the start of Street Fighter 2. I was incorrect from a previous video I made where I said this was Mike and Joe from Street Fighter 1. Captain Sawada. This is a character who appears in Street Fighter the movie, and he works with Guile and tries to stop Shadaloo. This character was most likely to be the replacement for Fei Long, as the producers thought that Ryu looked too similar to Fei Long. Urien and Gil are white. Once again in an Udon comic, Gil and Urien can be seen with white skin, and with Urien's starting animation in Street Fighter 3, you can see him as white, turning a darker color. Gil met Obama. In a page in an Udon comic, Gil is greeting many world leaders, one of them looking like Obama, so I guess Obama is canon to Street Fighter now. Akuma is Ryu's dad. If we go down the training timeline, Gotetsu trains Akuma and Gouken, making them the first Shotos. Gouken, now old, trains Ryu and Ken, also making them Shotos. I don't know if I fully believe that Akuma is Ryu's dad, but it's honestly not a bad theory. The EX games are crossover games. Technically, Eureka did make the EX games and created the original characters, and those characters eventually showed up in a game of their own, fighting EX layers, so I guess now they're crossover games. Street Fighter 3 is a play. I couldn't find anything about this and can't really see how it can be a play, so let me know what you think. Ryu and Ken and King of Fighters 98. In an interview with Toyasha Tanabe, he says that SNK had some more time before King of Fighters 98 came out, so the producers put in Ryu and Ken as well as Goku in the game, but just for fun. so a version of this game does exist with these characters in it, but it'll probably never be made publicly released. Nadeshiko Heal version. If you don't know, Nadeshiko is Rainbow Mika's partner you see in Street Fighter V, but Nadeshiko has a persona called the Heal version, where she's rivals with Rainbow Mika. Why? I have no clue. Playable Obama in Street Fighter Online. If you don't know, Street Fighter Online was a game released for PCs in 2008 that played only with a mouse. And that sounds horrible, but one of the characters was Obama, so I guess Capcom is just a bunch of fanboys for Obama. Leon in Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. There were many planned characters for Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, one of them being Leon from Resident Evil. Some other characters include Dante from Devil May Cry, Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins, Bison from Street Fighter, and Shenko from Darkstalkers, plus others from Tatsunoko. Japan Sumo Cup. Capcom released a rhythm racing game for PCs in 2015 to promote the Japan Sumo Cup and featured many sumo wrestlers as well as Street Fighter characters racing on horses. Strangely enough, all characters take on their appearance from Street Fighter 4, but Nikali was later added. Street Fighter 4 Flashback. Around the time Street Fighter 4 was being developed, Backbone, who made games like the Street Fighter 2 HD Remix, pitched an idea to Capcom with a simple fighting game that also includes a story mode called Ryu's Journey. I think this would have been pretty cool, but it'll never happen now. Alex in SNK vs. Capcom Match of the Millennium. If you insert the game into a black and white Neo Geo Pocket, you can see some cameos from Capcom and SNK characters. And strangely enough, Alex is the only Street Fighter character aside from Chun-Li. Ken and Guile's themes were swapped. This happened due to another copyright issue similar to the name swap. Ken's theme is very similar to the song Mighty Wings from the movie Top Gun, which is about the military, and Guile works in the military. Laura marries Alubath. I don't know who Alubath is, and when I looked it up, even Google didn't know who I was talking about. Street Fighter 2 Ride. This is a 4-minute long CGI film that was supposedly going to be a ride, and not much else is known about it. Dan's Yuri pose in Street Fighter Alpha 1. I'm not too sure why this is so far down on the iceberg, because this is in every game with Dan, but he does make a pose similar to Yuri from Art of Fighting. And finally, G is Street Fighter V's antagonist. Of course we're ending on one of these, but I don't really see how this can be true. In G's story mode, he plans to unveil himself as the president of the world, but nothing actually happens after that. We'll just have to see what happens in Street Fighter 6. Wow, that was a lot of work, but I do hope you enjoyed the Street Fighter Iceberg. If you know anything I didn't know and if there was anything I missed, please let me know down below. And big shoutouts to Fairly Frequent Fighting Game Facts on Twitter for making this iceberg, so you should go give him a follow. But that's all I have for you. I probably won't be making another one of these anytime soon, so enjoy this one. But I'll see you guys in another video.